Hello team, today's challenge is Schema Validator Part 1, which leads me to believe that at some point in the very near future, we're probably going to see a Part 2, and I'm curious what that could be. But for now, we're given an object or a dictionary, depending on which of these languages we're using, and we need to determine if it matches this schema. We need a property name of username, and it must be a string. So if we grab this, because I'm going to use it in a second, because I am working in JavaScript, but down here we have a username with a string, so that's true. Username with a string on test 2. It does have extra stuff. We don't really care about the other extra stuff. We just care about that it has a username with a string, okay? Which is why this is also true. This is an empty string. We don't care what's in there so long as it is a string. So that is true. Test 4 is a number, right? It's not wrapped in quotes. If it was wrapped in quotes, that would be a string. So that would be true, but for now it's a number, so it's false. And the last one doesn't have username at all. So that too is false, okay? So with that, we take this over to here and we get started, okay? I'm going to create an object, if I could type this right, const. We're going to call it default schema because we're about to make this flexible so they can send in any schema and we can test against it, okay? That's going to be this thing, which we had. String needs to be in quotes because that's the type, right? So it needs to be, it's not a variable. So in order to protect against that, we wrap it in quotes. It could be a number or a Boolean. All of these are lowercase, right? So we protect against that. And right now I'm going to add a comma, completely optional, but you'll see why in a bit, okay? You don't actually need to do that. That's just so that I can show some stuff later on. So with that, I take that default schema and I use it right here as a second option, okay? I use it as the default for this. That's why I call it default schema. So now schema is equal to default schema. If I wanted to pass in a completely different schema and test it against whatever object I'm passing in, well, now it just works, okay? So benefits all around. In here, I should have some sort of a test. That test is test to make sure obj is an object, right? We should do something like that, but right now it doesn't matter. So I'm going to skip it, but in real life, you should have that test, okay? You test to make sure it's an object. You test to make sure it's not null because null has a type of object. So something interesting there, okay? But testing that, and then of course going down here and doing the work. Now the work is to loop through all of the keys of our schema and see if they exist on object. And then if they do, we see if they are of type string, okay? We can do all that just by grabbing those keys. So right here, keys of schema, not default schema, because that's right here, right? So that, and we do every, there needs to be a dot there, not a comma. So every key, and we are going to test some stuff. What are we going to test? Well, we're going to test if the type of obj key equals schema, like this. My fingers don't want to type that. Schema key, okay? And this feels like it should do it, right? It absolutely passes. It does a thing, but there's a catch here, okay? And the catch looks like this. I'm going to go and grab some stuff. This is why I added this comma up here so that I wouldn't have to do that later. But we have some extra properties. Now, if I add password, which has a type of string, we should expect this to fail, okay? And it absolutely does. The truthy, or the ones that we want to be true, are not. They're false, which means that our tests are working properly, actually, when you think about it. But if we go back here and we turn password off and we go to test undefined and run it, now it still passes again. And the question is, what is going on, okay? The answer, of course, is that object doesn't have a key of test, so it returns undefined, which means that type of undefined, well, that is undefined, the string undefined. and this returns true, right? That's kind of what we're doing. So in this case, again, it's kind of a foolish test because why would we ever have a property that is um, set to undefined in here, right? But we could, right? It's possible. So we should definitely take care of that. And the easy way to take care of that is just to see if the value is in there. A few different ways to do this. I'm just going to take key in obj, just like this, and like this. And now it fails. Okay, so I ran it, and now I get those failing tests. I turn this off, and everything is working again. So a very small addition to that, where just adding this little extra bit ensures that if our schema had undefined, right? If we were actually looking for a value that had undefined for some reason, maybe it's deprecated or some silly thing, right? Then we can absolutely do that. We can make sure that it all works and it lines up nicely. Okay. Just for the whole kit and caboodle, if I wanted to go in here, I could paste in my test. It looks like this. So in case you were wondering, we test the type of to make sure that it's an object. And because null is a type of object, we need to make sure that object isn't null, right? And so that's the whole thing. This is the solution for today, okay? Again, we started out by creating a default schema, and we did this because we want to be able to pass this as an argument. We want this to be as flexible as possible. It is unlikely that we're ever going to have just a single schema, right? Data comes from everywhere. So being able to test that, we should absolutely do that. This is the way to do that. We pass it in, we make sure that object exists, otherwise we throw an error. Otherwise, we run through all the keys of the schema and test to make sure that first they exist in object, and second, that that object key is of the right type. Okay. Plenty of ways to do this in actual practice. TypeScript and Zod are probably your go-to for this, but if you're doing something small, this can get it done, right? And it gets it done quite easily. Again, not every solution, just hopefully one good solution. If you found a different way, if you want to show me that, if you want to tell me what you think about this code, do all that in the comments, okay? Otherwise, for today, this has been Schema Validator Part 1. At some point, we'll probably see a Part 2. But yeah, Schema Validator Part 1, and I will see you in the next one.